I'm Lora Jenks, and I teach second grade at Mark Twain Elementary. This edition of 5 Good Minutes is focusing on PBIS, or Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. More specifically, I'm going to focus on strategies for a safe, predictable, and positive return to school. Much of what's on the following slides come from an article that is linked on this slide, so if you care to look for additional information, that's a good source. One of the first things that we want to make sure that we do when students return to school is acknowledge and teach school-wide expectations. We need to teach building-wide expectations, and they may differ from location to location: hallway behavior, restroom behavior, lunchroom, cafeteria behavior. We want to make sure we explicitly teach what those expectations are, including new expectations for COVID-19 safety measures. And we want to continue to reteach rather than just reprimanding to help form new habits around the school. We also need to make sure that we're teaching classroom expectations very explicitly. There will be new protocols, including hand washing, sanitizing, social distancing kinds of things. We need to make sure we're teaching students these and explaining the new practices and why they're important. We can't assume that students know. We need to make sure that we continue to reteach. We need to practice and model new safety measures. We also need to make sure that students are very clear about what our online learning expectations are, including behavior during online meetings or chats, and due dates and how to turn things in. We need to make sure that we're focusing on pro-social, positive behavior in order to reteach and replace unwanted behavior. We want to make sure that we get to know our students well. This is going to be more of a challenge, possibly, given new standards of safety, but we want to make sure that we greet students by name at the door, or greet them by name if you're on an online meeting. Learn about students' interests outside of the school so you build that connection. Utilize circles to build a classroom community. I know that even though I wasn't seeing my students in person, we still did that on our Google Meets at the end of last school year. We want to make sure we focus on students' strengths to help build on areas of weaknesses. We want to make sure that we focus on positive reinforcement and avoid punitive approaches when possible. Reprimanding unwanted behavior helps students, tells them what they shouldn't do, but it doesn't teach them what they should do. Reteaching and modeling expectations using positive reinforcement can help students form new and desired habits. I've included another link about utilizing positive reinforcement on this slide, if you're interested in reading more about that. Make sure you're looking for signs that students need help. Many students are going to be able to come back to school and adjust to the changes and new procedures without a problem. Some students are going to struggle with that, so look for those struggling students, the students who are having a hard time adjusting or they're experiencing trauma, and make sure that you utilize available supports to connect students with the adults that they need. Maybe it's a staff member that they connect strongly to. Maybe they need a counselor or a social worker to intervene in a situation. So just be aware of that. And finally, we want to make sure that we re-engage families as partners. We need to make sure we communicate the school's message with families clearly. It's helpful for students to have common messages at home and at school. Schools can really be a unifying and supportive part of the community if we can partner in meaningful ways. That's going to be more of a challenge this year. I was thinking about some of our PTA-sponsored events, like our VIP breakfasts and some of the other fun activities that we do, or even spectators at sporting events. That's going to look different this year. So how can we engage families as much as possible? We're going to need their support and they're going to need our support. So the more that we can rely on each other, that's going to be very helpful this year. I did include another link on an article that discusses using PBIS to connect families. This last slide is just a link to PBIS World and PBIS.org. Those are great websites that contain an abundance of resources if you're interested in more information about ways to use PBIS at school. Thanks.